Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Need to Nerd podcast. This is our second time recording in what feels like literal days because of me being sick on Thursday, and then us being together on Sunday and Saturday. We were together. I mean, I don't even know. I don't know, West. I don't.
We didn't hang out. I mean, yeah.
I don't. What did we do yesterday? Did we not watch Hitch yesterday? What?
No, we watched Hitch on Saturday.
It? I don't even know.
Today is Monday.
There we go.
Our new recording day.
Our new recording day. That's exciting. That's
yes,
exciting. It is. And you won a pre-release, quote unquote, we could say.
I quote unquote split winning a pre-release, I would say, but I did the thing that one wins at. Yes.
The Magic the Gatherings, for those who know what we're talking about.
Did not go so well.
Did not go so well. You know what though? I got to watch Smash with some people in the Easy Game Media Discord last night, watching Mango take down Summit 11. That did go well for Mango, winning the largest prize in the history of the game with, I think it was $46,000.
Are we to the part of the show yet where we can talk about spoilers?
Spoilers for Mango, or like you
just
had
period?
How is that? It happened. Like that's a live event. That's like somebody saying the Patriots won the Super Bowl and then somebody going, spoilers. It's like
there is absolutely someone out there who's complaining that everyone's spoiling the outcome of the Super Bowl for them, but they were working during that shift or something.
Yeah, you're an insane person if you do that. That's
you're not insane. You're a cog in the wheel of capitalism who has to be at work during the Super Bowl. But
all right,
I don't know.
All right. Well, we're not here to talk about the Super Bowl. We are
or
here...
Summit.
Or Smash Summit, unfortunately. We are here to talk about the cult classic. Go ahead.
Cult classic?
I think so.
Okay.
I think this has a cult following for a lot of people.
All right.
At least it does in my family. Maybe just my family's the cult. You don't know, Wes. We are talking about Will Smith in Hitch. This is the romantic comedy that is set for the standards of all other romantic comedies to live up to. I'm excited to talk about it. Before we do that,
really brings a new definition to the idea of meet cute in romantic comedies. I'll tell you that.
Before we get too far into this, let's do some housekeeping. Then we're heading over to the Discord. Link in the show notes. You could have been watching Smash Summit 11. We're still going to be doing those monthly Valheim times. You can, go in there, talk about the drafts, all these drafts that people are doing on MTG Arena. There's memes, there's puppy pics, there's other fur and feathered friends and scaled friends being talked about. It's a hopping place. It's a hopping place. There's another place that we want to be hopping though, and that's our Patreon. Heading over to patreon.com/He'sAGameMedia to become one of our patrons, and it would mean the world to us. Just starting at $1, anything that you see fit is great. This show will always be free because we just do it because we talk about nerd stuff together. But if you get something out of it, if it brings you $1 worth of enjoyment, it is super helpful for us to continue making. So
yeah, I'd love to see your support. Think of all the movies that Spencer will be able to convince me to watch if we have Patreons.
You were mad that I spent $4 for us to watch this movie.
I sure was.
You were like, why are you spending money? And I was like, I want to watch the movie.
I don't know if this is like a me thing or whatever, but like in a world where there is literally so much content out there that I'm either paying a subscription to access or is literally free, the idea of like paying marginally extra money to watch something I specifically want to watch is so alien now. And like, I think it's because I was never old enough to pull out my own wallet to spend money at a Blockbuster or anything like that growing up. Here's
the thing. If somebody listening has a VPN company that wants to sponsor this podcast, I'm happy to take your call and we can talk about it. But I didn't want to just go get a VPN for us to watch Hitch. No, I don't know what the right solution was, but boy, is it just like my overall being is not about renting movies on Amazon. I don't know. It's not a
It's never like been the sort of thing that I'm like, I woke up today and I really wanted to watch this film and this is the only way I can do it. Okay, I'll do that. Then again, I almost never wake up in the morning wanting to watch a film is really the issue.
So, the year West is
2005.
And what we're reviewing is, in my opinion, my very humble opinion, just the greatest.
Yeah, right. Humble opinion about rom-coms?
It's humble. I'm humble about it.
No. In my whole time knowing you, you've never been humble about your opinions about rom-coms. It's probably the only thing you're not humble about.
It is the greatest rom-com ever made. I don't know. It's up there. I think that it is, really a beautiful piece of art that pulls at your heartstrings in lots of different ways, where you're following multiple characters in their quest to find what we're all looking for, love. And it does it with quite the cast. We've got Kevin James, we've got Will Smith, we've got Eva Mendes, quite the cast of quite the ensemble cast here.
Yeah, it's Spencer and I nearly thought we saw Chidi Anagonye in there, but we were wrong.
Yeah, we were. That was funny. Yeah, there were multiple times at the beginning of the movie we were pausing it, like, wait, what is that person in? What is that person in?
Yeah,
because it's got some bangers to start out.
Some of the extras are some of my all-time favorite like characters in the movie Wet Hot American Summer, which is definitely like one of my all-timers. So it was really fun to see those guys in that movie as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes in, I think, I was trying to pull up the runtime, but I think it comes in pretty short on runtime as well. It's just one of those. I don't know. It feels like
hour 58.
An hour 58. So it's actually kind of long for a rom-com. It feels like one of those films that we don't get anymore. It feels like the early 2000s, the late 90s, the rom-coms were huge. Like you'd have a new rom-com, all year long. Like, what is the latest rom-com that we can go watch? And the I don't know if it got played out but it's not something that you get a lot of anymore. That isn't, I don't know, super cheesy. Like there's not a lot of this anymore.
No, it does feel like your average movie these days is either like a very much like social critique movie, whether it's from a point of view of like tragedy or drama or even horror. I feel like is on the end of social critique a lot. Like you see a lot of those movies, and then you see your like blockbuster CGI films of some kind, whether it's superhero or Star Wars or other like action adventure movie. But definitely Hitch does feel like from a different time. And one of the things that I think is so clear about films of this time is like the tiny attention to detail that these films require because of how real everything in them is.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, if I was going to hype this up, like if you're a fan of things like, I don't know, Crazy Stupid Love is like maybe a more recent romantic comedy that I think fits into the vein of like, really pulling at your heartstrings and like making you think about love in an interesting way. Or, I think that some of those, but it's not, I don't know that it's in the vein of like Sleepless in Seattle or like You've Got Mail or anything like that.
It also feels different than like your like Love Actuallys.
Yeah, definitely different than. It was funny because when I was talking about it during this segment already, like Valentine's Day came to mind as like it like has that ensemble cast feel to it where you're like following multiple storylines for love, but it's not really like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think if I were to summarize this, it's like, sit down with your significant other, with your partner, with somebody who. I think this movie offers a lot to anyone looking for love across a broad spectrum in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
and we'll kind of get into that. Let's talk about our first reactions. Wes, this is the third movie that we've done that I just said, hey, like, you haven't seen this, okay, we're gonna watch it.
Yeah.
So I gotta know, like, why don't you go first? Like, give me your first reaction to this film.
So I definitely, like, during the opening of this film is like a monologue by Will Smith as you see like a whole bunch of different like beginnings of romantic situations, some of which he's got his hands in, some of which he doesn't. And my immediate reaction for someone who's trying to play in the affairs of love is huge mistrust, which this movie expects from most people. And that plays out over the course of the movie, of course. But I like the idea of that, like, every woman is waiting to be swept off their feet was the sort of thing that, like, I did not enjoy to begin with. But as the movie went on, I think it made some really credible cases for how that works. Some really like found the corner cases that I was worried about and really spoke to those.
Yeah, I think the line that, like, I think you audibly were like, ugh, like when he said she's lying to you. I think you legitimately, like,
Oh yeah.
you did not like that line, and it's actually one of my favorite lines in the movie because it's not like, maybe we'll get into this later. I don't think that he's saying like she's just lying to you. Like, in a lot of cases, like, we're lying to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of those cases, there are people where it's not true for, and I think that it does a good job of kind of talking about, like, people who are either guarded or are not actually interested in ever having a relationship. But you know, I think that what he's saying it poorly, and also he's lying to himself when he talks about it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the thing that comes out over the course of this movie is, more than anything else, is like what Hitch is actually good at is taking people who know who they like, which I think is powerful, because I think that once, like, your interest in a human being is more than just a spontaneous, oh, that person's attractive, there is, you know, I think that relationship, if it does happen, is more significant. And oftentimes I think the work that it takes to go into that to make it happen is higher. And Hitch does a fantastic job of, like, bringing about the results that make that happen. And his unwillingness to work with people for whom it's just, you know, about sex, I am very, like, that was probably the moment where I fully, like, settled into Hitch as a character and was willing to be along for the ride he was putting up. And then from that moment, I was actually just super headcanoning, like, every like horribly bad thing that goes wrong in the movie.
You headcanoned a lot.
It is the sort of thing that, like, he was actually anticipating. But Hitch was actually a character that I really understood well at a certain point in the movie, because he is this, like, adaptive, reactive person who knows that not everything is under control and knows that certain things can be under control, and he works really hard to plan ahead for things to be under his control. And that allows him to hold the narrative in absolute chaos. He is actually a fantastic character in living up to the ideals of Octavia Butler's Parable series.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool.
We need to rewind for a second, because I think during the hype segment I need to do a better job of summarizing what the movie is about, because I think that we've dived in pretty deep without actually saying what is this film about if you haven't seen it. And this film is a story about people finding love, but it is a story about a man who was once crushed, helping others avoid that feeling of crushing, and, like, helping them get over the hurdle and come across the way that they the best of themselves, so that they can find the happiness that they're looking for in relationships.
Yeah.
And so his job, the love doctor, some people call him, but the name, he's Hitch. He hitches people up. Um,
Yeah.
the first time that I saw this movie, I can't even remember because it was such a staple in my home. Like, it was one of those movies that we watched quite a bit.
Yeah, what's like your aggregate impression coming out of childhood of this film?
Yeah, I mean, we quoted this movie all the time. And I loved it. I thought, I wanted to be Hitch. Like, I wanted that to be my job. And I would set people up in high school, and I had high school friends who joked that I was Hitch. I thought that he was, I don't know, I thought that he was really cool. I thought that he taught important lessons to me in my youth, on both sides, like on, you know, not coming across the way that I probably would and often do today, and being overbearing and stuff like that. So for me, Hitch was this movie where, you got to see the best parts of people like, oh my gosh, I can't even remember the second main character's name right now. Albert, but also like seeing vulnerability in a lot of ways from some characters, and like seeing walls break down. I don't know. I like, it was probably my favorite romantic comedy for a really long time.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. It has the two core relationships at the center of it are both fascinating because of how, right, like these the choices that these characters make and the conditions of their lives very much should be like indicating that these relationships can't exist at all. And yet the work that Albert and Hitch put into kind of figuring out how to make these relationships work, and understanding that they actually do have something to offer to these women that would otherwise definitely not be interested.
Yeah, I think let's get into high level impressions.
Sure.
And let's talk about the story a little bit so that we can get into. I mean, if you're listening to this point, we've done a pretty good job, I think, not spoiling, some of the key points of the story. But we're gonna definitely get into that now. And what happens here is, you have a client that comes to you. You start off with the opening scene, right? And I love the opening scene, by the way. Like, I love all of the relationships that are built during that, and the rapid pace in which it happens, and seeing these people that are like very genuinely interested in this. Like, one of my favorites is the guy with the girl that works at the candy store, and like that line where he's like, in case you missed high school, like, hitting is a good thing. Like, she genuinely thinks he's adorable and so cute, and loves his interest. The guy when he like winks at her when he like gets her a screwball, and she's like, you're such a dork. Like, I mean, listen, I've been with the same woman now for 10 years. And the number of times where she calls me a dork, like, is probably like 13 times a day. I am madly in love with her. And, she thinks I'm too good for her. I think she's too good for me. It is this, like, very... I mean, I'm sure that to my friends, it is, like, nauseating. You're like, oh my gosh, you two. Like...
I feel like it's less nauseating when there's also like children in the fray.
Sure.
Like, it's just harder for everyone to.
Yeah.
It's very obvious at some points, but
I do think that the opening scene like gives you that feeling of like, you're either like, oh, that's so cute, or you're like, oh my gosh, these two are like, all these couples are like this. And then you have this guy that gets this reference because he only works off of references, and he's like, yeah, I want to date this supermodel. Like,
you're out of your mind.
This millionaire supermodel, this like overweight accountant that like had like literally moments before spilled mustard all over his suit and then a soda, and like, oh my gosh. And when Hitch just hears him, the way he talks about her and the way that he really thinks about the supermodel, that it's not just the supermodel aspect that he's interested in.
Yeah.
He's actually an admiration of her character and of her person. Hitch is like, yeah, I mean, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I think that that character Albert is so fascinating here because and part of the reason why I came about on how what Hitch does and how like the opportunities he creates can mean something, even if they're. I mean, honestly, this one was even less manufactured by Hitch than most. All Hitch really does is like stand next to Albert at different times and say, "No, no, no, you got to do what you want to do. Don't be scared."
I mean, I think that's underselling Hitch a little bit. Like, I don't know that Albert would have done anything in that conference room if Hitch hadn't said, make.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But the part where like reverse engineering, like what is it that actually is going to get Allegra Cole's attention is awesome, because Albert definitely is it in a lot of ways, because the most people fall into one of two camps. Either they think they have a legit shot at her for her body and that's what they're going for, or they don't and they're going to find some other way to get at her money. And Albert's just like, do you? I can't possibly compare. And at some point, I guess this is just okay. Like, the scene where Albert's like has the door open just a crack, right? Hitch is right there. The office has been trashed and they're talking through what just happened. I love his continued use of "let me check my schedule" right after he quits his job. It's so funny.
Yeah, I like audibly cracked up when he said that. Let me check my schedule. I'm like, you just quit your job in front of her, like 12 seconds before. It was too good. It was too good.
But I think it's interesting because it's probably just like absolute reflex, because everyone in his industry is saying, "let me check my schedule" all the time. I also love Hitch playing the role of secretary on the phone for Allegra. That was really funny. I enjoyed that a lot. But we're not talking about what we love about this film. We're talking about the high level impressions. And for me, the thing that this film kind of brings across that matches my own philosophy around these things very closely is that of like what situations does the opportunity for any sort of interaction beyond what are like typical surface level interactions might be? What does it take to create that? And I don't think it needs to be as drastic as save somebody's dog from getting hit by a taxi as it runs out across the road. But absolutely, I think that there are situations in the world where people are like open to meeting new people, and they're like getting mixed around. And then there are a lot of situations where everyone is just guard up, right? Maybe they're being kind, like, they're being nice to the people around them, right? Maybe they're saying hi, good day, whatever, but they're not really open to having any genuine interaction with them. And I think for a lot of people, it makes sense, right? Like if you're at your job, that's probably not what you're looking for that day. If you're just walking down the street, not what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think just to highlight what you're saying right now, Hitch does a really good job of understanding, like when is the appropriate time to do something.
Yeah.
And like a good example of this is he's not asking Allegra Cole on a date at work. Like he's just making sure that she understands that he exists. And those are different things. Like and I actually think the bar scene where the guy walks up and like doesn't get the hint that she doesn't want that interaction at that exact moment encapsulate what Hitch is trying to do for people right there.
Which bar scene?
Where the guy like walks up and she's like, "Listen, I am not interested in anything right now."
Oh, yeah. Oh, where Sarah is rejecting every guy at the bar while simultaneously inviting them to come up to her in a way.
Yeah.
I think it's that's a fantastic scene, top to bottom. But absolutely, this film, while largely being about how to get the yes, absolutely lays down on the floor that no means no as well.
It does.
With some very small exceptions to where like there is a bit of like persistence is rewarded, but it is not in a very creepy way. It is like a persistence is rewarded because it was like very much a like either it crossed, like there was a threshold that like Sarah is waiting for of how it, how like how much work someone has to do to actually get her attention, or it's you know the only way to be right in rebelling is to win, that sort of sense. Like it's all is forgiven because it did get there, is that sense. But mostly this film does a fantastic job of knowing what are the right boundaries, which I think is awesome, because when I was thinking about this as like a 2005 film, I knew that I was going to like find a lot of things where I'm like, I don't like that now. But
there were less
this
of
film,
them than you thought, right? Like it did
absolutely.
Yeah. Let me talk about my high level stuff really quick, because and I'm gonna be really simple on mine. I love everything about this movie. This movie makes me laugh really hard, as Wes got to witness. Like there are moments where I'm just like cracking up on the floor. It also makes me think about stuff, and like think about not just myself, but like I I have given advice to a lot of people. I mean, honestly, like when you're in a relationship for as long as I am, people tend to ask you for advice about relationships, and it can be really hard to give meaningful advice after a long time, and also know when like maybe it's not your place to give advice. Like like one of the things that this movie does a really good job of is just teaching you how every situation is so different, because people are so different. And so like what works in my relationship might not work in yours. And
I think Hitch is always so fascinated to find out like which really unattractive features of the people he's thinking about are actually attractive features to the people that work out together.
Yeah, and I think that I put this on my Levitts, but I'll just say right now, like that inhaler moment where like Albert throws his inhaler and she's like totally into it. I think that vulnerability is something that people actually do look for almost universally in relationships, and I think that's something that Hitch misses that he learns throughout the movie. So, but I think this movie also makes me care and also question, how hard am I working in my relationship now? The last week, I surprised my wife. It was like, hey, just so you know, Amanda's going to take our newborn and our daughter, and we're going to go watch Black Widow, because Black Widow is one of your favorite characters in the MCU. I know we could watch it at home when our kids are asleep, but like,
let's go do it in a way that matters.
Like let's do something special. And well, I might cry. I haven't cried on this podcast in a while. I don't know. It's like, I am going to cry. I think that I feel
like you came close to crying at Valheim, Spencer. Let's be honest.
Did I?
I don't know. I don't think you did.
I don't think I did. I am crying. There are tears. I think that sorry, I just love my wife a lot. I think that, my high level impression of this movie is just being genuine is really important. So I'll say that. And I think it makes me question how genuine I'm being at times. Let's move on to, I really like that we added this segment for loving, so I've actually added it for movies, and I might even do it for like anime and stuff moving forward. But did you learn anything, West?
Absolutely. I think that right, the perspective that we walk into this film with, right, is very different when thinking about it, right? Because you have kids, you're married, you love your wife a lot, and that is really incredible. And I am absolutely just so single.
Well, actually, let's frame this a little bit, really quickly, because this is something I wanted to ask you 2 segments ago, but I didn't want to interrupt. But I think this might be the right time to do it. Where do you think that you entered? Like you talked about where Sarah's at, you talked about where Albert's at, you talked about where Allegra's at a little bit. Where were you at when you sat down to watch this movie? Like this is your first time watching this romantic comedy, and you watched it with your podcast co-host. Like where were you? Where are you mentally as far as openness to be in a relationship when sitting down to watch this romantic comedy?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a deep question.
You also don't have to answer it on the air, and I can totally edit this out if you want.
No, it's all good. I think that for me, I've been single for a long time, and my last big relationship I was in was really hard on me and did not end in a graceful way. Kind of not like Hitch's relationship ended, but in the sort of same way where like it left me with a lot to think about of like how to consider somebody before I decide to be that vulnerable to them. And like I was really starting to date again right as the pandemic fell on all of us. And like throughout the entirety of the pandemic, like I'm not a person who really enjoys online dating. I don't really um, love using apps as a way to meet people. And the way that I tend to meet people is in like just being around the world, is kind of like be like whether it's traveling or it is at a social situation I wouldn't find myself normally in, or even just talking to someone on like the train on the way home or so, that sort of thing. Like those are all ways I've met people in the past. um and so for me, like the sort of situations in which I find people and there's like an immediate sort of like static there that I can pursue have just really disappeared for a long time. And this film really kind of made me think about like, okay, how do I recognize these things again? And since I think that by and large, a lot of the spontaneous, just like situations where people are open to talking to people they don't know have kind of dried up both in the world at large, and I'm kind of at a point in my life where that doesn't happen as easily as it maybe did in high school or college. So now I'm to the point where like the film has me thinking about when I do meet someone and I realize I do like them, how do I proceed from there? What does this film teach me about acting on a crush I have, on acting to make someone aware of my existence or that I am interested, but not in any creepy ways? And film taught me a lot.
Yeah, it actually does a really good job of like kind of taking steps in relationships too, and even Hitch teaches that, right? Like things like this is a process. This isn't, oh, I like this person. And actually, the bar scene, I'm gonna go back to it when that guy walks up. Like he like wants to get to step 6 with Sarah in this conversation. Like just that's where he starts, and like I yeah, I agree with you. I think that the movie teaches a lot about those steps, and it does a really good job of it.
I also think Hitch reminded me of one of my greatest strengths, which is I think I'm a pretty good first date planner. And his first date that he has with Sarah is, I think, so cool. Both in how well planned it is and how horrendously it goes wrong.
I love it. I love it, and we'll get into a little bit of that during Lovitz.
But how every step of the way, as things go bad, like his choices are still ones that
they're still adorable and caring and thought out.
Will also like move things forward, right?
Yeah.
Like my water ski died. Let me sit with you on yours is like that's almost as perfect a moment as you're hoping he planned that one.
Also, can we just talk about how gross it is to fall into the Hudson? Like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's so true.
Every time I watch it, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
So gross.
I also really appreciate how when they're water skiing, or I guess it's not a water ski. It's
they're wave runners.
Whatever they are, but like when they're on those, there's not a boat on the Hudson, and any other time the Hudson's in the shot, it is busy. I love that aspect of like
too funny.
Trying to record a film is hard.
It's so funny too, because like he talks about how like we need to go early so that we can get there before Ellis Island opens up, basically. But it's like, yeah, but before Ellis Island opens up, like the Hudson would be full of like cargo ships. Like what is happening? I think that for me, I kind of talked about this earlier, but I think that this movie taught me a lot about vulnerability. And I'm going to be vulnerable with the listeners right now. One of the things that I did during 2020 during quarantine was go back to therapy for the first time since, before my relationship with my wife. And we even did couples therapy a little bit. And one of the reasons for that is just that my wife, I don't know if, my wife was abused as a child by a stepdad, I guess you could say, and so for her, like she has had a lot of barriers in our relationship that we had to work on, and I think that one of the interesting things that we learned is just like that trauma comes in a lot of different ways. And I think that you see that in this movie, like what happened for Alex Hitchens in this movie, where his girlfriend that he said he loved, that said it back, that did not mean it, was a traumatic experience for him.
Yeah.
And kind of breaking down your traumas and stuff like that with your partner can be pretty important. And you see that in the scene where Alex is like, I need you to shut the door so that I can express myself without looking at you. Because I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it seeing you. And
I actually loved how he was so flabbergasted in the moment. He just did not have like anything productive to say looking at her in the face, which was so funny.
And you know what? It is that moment is like, it is super real. For example, I think that my wife and I are much better texters with each other than we are often in vocal communication, because my wife can think out what she wants to say when it's a text, and in a conversation, like, she sits in silence deciding what to say. And it's really interesting to kind of see how those traumas impact people. And I think that for Hitch, like, he needs to just be able to think out loud, and he couldn't do that while looking at Sarah. Whereas I think that when you look at Allegra Cole, she broke down piece by piece through her traumatic, experiences as a child with Albert. Like, Albert broke her down piece by piece through her traumas to the point where, like, she just loved him. Like, it was, oh my gosh, I can be vulnerable with this person. And nobody else in the last, however long has let me be this vulnerable with them. And I think vulnerability is like my biggest learning and reminder from this watch through. Let's do Could Be Betters. The thing I love about this segment, and I try to say this every time when I remember, is just that we're not talking about, this sucked, this is something stupid. It is, how do we think that, how do we frame things as ways to improve rather than things that we hated?
Yeah.
And I only have one because, I have to recognize that this is like kind of a period, like it is of 2005. But I did think sometimes the pacing of this movie was awkward this watch through. And which is funny because I think that there were a lot of times where the pacing was really good. Like they moved through the story, made me care about stuff in like a really great way. But I don't know. I think there were awkward moments that lasted too long. Like, once I understand that something is awkward, I think you can move on. And I actually think that's going to go into your Could Be Better, because there's a lot of parts about Albert, for example, where I'm like, okay, this bit lasted a little too long. Like, if you had just done the beginning of this bit, that was fine. But now you're interrupting the story for something that I don't know is necessary.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, this film does this like very powerful piece of storytelling in that it gives every character kind of like an essential aspect of them, who they are, and you'll see this in every scene that they're in, right? And Albert's is rough, which is that he's like clumsy, right? Is that his nervous manner often leads him to interact with objects around him in a way that is gonna break them, right?
So, can I talk about a dichotomy in this for what it's worth?
Yeah.
So the scene where he's on the phone with Allegra and like he knocks over the thing, that's a great scene. Like
I love that.
To start to finish, that entire scene is fantastic. When he's getting the stuff ripped out of him, like, Will Smith should just leave the room. Like, it was funny that he said a man screaming, right? Like, that's where the gag should end. We shouldn't continue to listen to Albert getting the stuff ripped out. Now we're interrupting the pacing of this scene with, like, I'm supposed to think it's really funny that he's getting the hair ripped out of his back continually. I didn't quite get it.
Oh, right. In the scene where he's like, getting his, like on the massage table. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. I think that Albert is his spilling things on himself is like, adorable character trait, right? Like his I hoped so badly for him to actually just fully leave the bathroom scene without his pants and not come back for them. Like I was
You
like,
did.
that's a way to make an impression.
You did want that really bad.
But at the same time, I just don't need to see like the like they broke like the rule of 3 for comedy for Albert getting hurt in a scene so many times. Like, which is like not what you want. Like I don't need the 4th or 5th way in which like he gets hurt. Like that's not fun for me. And also like when it's that he's like inattentive and nervous that he breaks things, that's awesome. When it's like I literally gripped this sink so hard it broke and spurted water at me, I'm like, that's just not really realistic.
That's not what happened.
Yeah.
He pulled himself up on it.
Oh, okay. Either way, there are lots of moments where Albert could have been about half as clumsy, and it would have come through really well still.
Yeah, I think that's the number one way in which pacing was interrupted in this film. I think the second way that pacing is interrupted is often Sarah. Like, I think that you can shut down without shutting down as much as she does. Like, I understand that, like, I'm trying to think of a specific example. Actually, you know what? I think a really good example of this is the scene where they're like fighting, where the whole scene seems so forced on Sarah's part, and it from the moment that Hitch says I don't do interviews, I really like the scene up until that moment, and then after that it's like, what is happening at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is pushing the scene forward? And that's where the pacing gets kind of confusing. You talked about early in the movie, you have this overweight accountant getting with this supermodel, and then you have this guy who has this super secret job dating a reporter, right? Like they're dichotomies of each other that just shouldn't work. And the second that Hitch says, like, I don't do interviews, the whole narrative of that scene should change. It shouldn't be Sarah trying to get the interview anymore. It should be like, I feel lied to and played. I don't know. Maybe that's her.
I mean, Sarah is definitely she's the hardest nut to crack in the film, right? She's the most guarded, the least vulnerable, and the person for whom vulnerability is not the thing she's looking for in someone else. And what I think is hard about Sarah is like, and I've discussed this with like friends in my life, like one of the like least attractive things people can do is like repeatedly shut down ideas for things to go do. Right? For like just like where like the just not very excited to experience spontaneity or try new things. And that's really hard, and that is definitely something that makes Hitch persisting through that unwillingness feels a bit weird because of how much I think Hitch probably is super into that, but I think Hitch is also viewing it as a challenge.
Let's talk about Lovitz. This segment is where we kind of talk about the things that we really love most about the thing that we're reviewing. I'm going to kind of rapid fire. I think I've talked a lot about it. I did love Albert. I love the whole thing. Obviously, the pacing issues with stuff, but I do think that he's adorable. He's caring. I think that he's my favorite character in the whole movie. I loved Hitch falling so hard for the girl he likes. I think that it is very clear that Hitch is doing more than he would typically do in this relationship because he's very interested. And it's really funny because he fails, and he fails hard. And I think for him that's super awkward, and it is really beautiful.
It's also the only thing that makes it work, right?
Yeah.
Because Sarah says, like, in the film, other than, like, he bombed spectacularly, that's the thing that makes me want to talk to him again.
Yeah. And then my absolute favorite part of the whole movie is the walkie-talkie scene. Like, she's and then she's like, "What if I had said Saturday?" And like she like it is so cute. I love it. I love that scene so much. What about you?
Yeah.
What are your love-its?
Definitely have to second the walkie-talkie scene. That one's an interesting one because the idea of ambushing someone at work is a really narrow and hard path to walk, and I think Hitch pulls it off so well and uses that like pressure of everyone else being able to hear as part of the thing that gets him there. But it was sweet. I love the mirroring of the scene where Albert has just like had this big outburst in the boardroom and is now ripping apart his office, and like Will Smith is getting him to stop, and Hitch is getting him to stop, to the boat scene at the very end of the film where Albert walks in while Allegra and Hitch are hugging and starts choking out Hitch. Like it's great that they both get a chance of choking each other during the film while intense scenes involving Allegra, I think is a really funny piece of like bookending. Plus I think the boat is an awesome take on the runway scene.
Oh yeah, I thought it was really great. It was funny too because you were like, "This is an awesome plane," and I was like, "You're funny."
Yeah. I don't know. The film is just so exciting. I love the small attentions to detail throughout all of it. I really like the scenes at bars because I think that that's such a quintessential New York comedy setting, and I think that Hitch brings some really fresh takes to it.
I'm surprised that one of your biggest love-its wasn't two pieces. I actually didn't put them on mine because I thought you were going to have them. The first is Hitch telling what's his name no.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I there's a lot of things I love, but absolutely Vance getting his is one of the better ones.
And then I thought the second one that you would say is him realizing that her coworker was gay and lying, and like just being like, "No, I'm not, I'm not doing this." Like knowing that he was lying, and then just ending the conversation was pretty great.
Yeah, I don't think the realizing the coworker was gay had anything to do with it. I think the coworker straight up said, "There's a guy I'm interested in."
No, he says girl.
Does he?
He does, yeah.
Okay, I'd have to rewatch that scene.
Yeah,
but my understanding was that the gay part was up front. He says something else that compromises him or whatever in there.
He does say something else. He says, you know, it was the time frame in which he's liked her. That gives it away.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Let's rate this 0 to 5. Is how we do our ratings. We've never given anything 0. I think the lowest rating we've ever given is a 3, and I think it was by me.
Do we have to like go on a streak of watching bad things? Do we have to go find bad things to watch to rate things lower? Spencer, is that what we have to go do?
No, I don't think so. Wes, I'm gonna let you go first. 0 to 5. 5 being perfect movie, 0 being literally lighted on fire. What would you give this?
Oh man, I'm gonna hope that this is the same rating I gave the other two films you've made me watch, but a 4.5 because I think they were all excellent, and I don't know what I need out of a film to be better than those, but it's probably I just need to watch any of them a second time.
I think you might have given That Thing You Do a 5 for what it's worth.
That sounds right. that thing you do stayed on my mind longer than I think this film will.
Yeah, I mean just the song alone
is a big part of it.
The song alone probably is still in your head.
Also, the line "Captain Geach" in the Shrimp Shack Shooters is, I think, a big part of it as well. But
plays the saxophone. Oh man, I love that movie so much. Yeah, I'd give it the same rating. I think that, you know, I don't know what it is about this movie, but it does such a good job as a romantic comedy of just being open and honest, and that scene where she's like looking through the peephole at him and he's like right in here, and he's like rubbing his. It's so good. I just love it.
Honestly, that whole scene felt like a Will Smith trying to do Jim Carrey impressions. just the like up in a mirror, just trying to look funny, do funny faces is a big part of that scene.
Yeah, I love it. That's going to do it for this week. You can find me at Spencer13H. You can find West at East_Monotone. And the podcast at Nietzsche Nerd Pod. You can find the entire Heezy Game Media stuff we got going on. I am going to start doing more on the YouTube channel, so head on over to the YouTube channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Review the podcast wherever you're listening if you can. Don't forget to check out the Constructive Criticism Network if you're a fan of Magic the Gathering. And Wes, we're going to be doing Valheim Nights soon. We got to announce when those are coming out, but the Discord should be popping with upcoming Magic events once I am able to do those again. Valheim Nights, it's going to be fun, dude.
Heck yeah. It's always finding more nerdy things to do, making it harder to feel like I get to do all the nerdy stuff I want. Too much out there. It's great.
All right, that is going to do it for this week. Wes, I'm going to go play some Pokemon Stadium 2, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, my friend.
Oh yeah, I'm making great headway on Dragon Age Origins right now.
I actually figured that's what you were going to do. I plan on beating Mass Effect 3 this week, so we both got our big RPGs that we got to finish.
Heck yeah.
That'll actually be that's actually one of the reasons is, I said I want to do more on the YouTube channel again, and I got to finish my Mass Effect series. So Mass Effect should be finished this week, and I should be recording a video here shortly. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you so much to Turtwig and Bulbasaur for joining us this week. Bulbasaur just single-handedly won me my first badge in Pokemon Stadium 2, so having him look at me this entire podcast was a huge benefit if you're watching on the YouTube channel. Real MVP, bro. Sleep Powder, Razor Leaf, let's go.
Absolutely. Show's over. Over.